Well, welcome back to our introductory lecture for World Regional Geography. Let's go into a discussion of what is geography. The definition, or a definition we could use, is that it is the analysis of interrelationships between physical and cultural phenomena to explain why things are distributed the way they are. So geography is the attempt to make sense of what you see out the window. What is in the world? How can we understand it? And how did it get to be that way? It is the characterization of places in the world. Urban places, rural places, wild places, current, past, and future times. It is also the study of the processes that create places, geological processes, climatic processes, biological, evolutionary, cultural processes, historical, political, social, and economic. Geography is people, places, and processes. To study the world as a discipline is to master the systemic ways in which people categorize the people, places, and processes of the world. Studying the world systematically is what sets geography as a science that enhances the common knowledge of the world that we all currently possess. Geography is an old science. It, along with history and philosophy, was one of the original sciences of the ancient Greeks. Other peoples made maps, but to the best of our knowledge, the Greeks were the first to systematize the knowledge of peoples and places. Many students think that geography is memorizing the locations of countries, capitals, and rivers, etc. That kind of knowledge is more a prerequisite to knowing what kinds of things are where, why they are there. I think it's best to remember that geographers try to answer something similar to these 5 questions. What is in the landscape? Where is it in relation to other things? Why is it where it is? How and why is it changing? And what does it mean in relationship to the rest of the world? So why do we study geography? It is increasingly important to know something about the world around us due to globalization. Politically, economically, and even culturally, there is an increasing global interdependence. There is an increasing appreciation for diversity, and life is richer for that experience as globalization expands throughout the world. And what is regional geography? The regional approach studies all of the characteristics of place that set it off from and relate it to other places in the world. This is the approach of your textbook and the main approach used in this course. Let's compare history to geography. They're quite similar studies in certain ways. When historians study a topic, an important component of their stories about the world focus on when, the sequence of events. So you can have subjects like the history of war, history of sports, etc., that give you the insight into the development over time. Geographers can study these same subjects and virtually anything else, but the geographer's perspective is spatial, in addition to being temporal as the historians. Hence, there can be the geography of war, the geography of sports, the geography of comic books. What geographers add to such topics is the spatial perspective, how things are distributed, and how and why they change over space. More than just place name geography, the memorization of locations on map is an important component of this geography course, just like knowing how to read is necessary before one studies Shakespearean literature. Knowing certain map locations is necessary before one studies geography. But if you know how to read, it does not mean that you understand Shakespearean literature. Also, if you only know map locations, you definitely do not know geography. You may know where something is, but not what it is in the landscape why it is there, or what it means in a spatial relationship to other things within the landscape, or that interrelationship. That's what's really important. Geography is also about change. The movement of people, movement of goods, ideas, the movement of pollution are all subjects for geographic study. Where are they going? How are they moving? What effects are produced? And what does it mean as we relate this spatially across the surface of our planet? As we progress through this course, pay attention to how and why things change. Maps are basic tools in geography. They're a model where some things are represented and some things are left out intentionally and used to communicate specific pieces of information. There are conventions used in cartography which allow a map to be read more efficiently and quickly. For example, a good map will have a legend or key that will show the user what different symbols on the map represent. A map has a title that provides important clues about the cartographer's intentions and goals. You can expect an entirely different information on a map titled Unemployment in Madison County if you compare it to one titled Topography of the Cumberland Mountains. Maps should have a north arrow, hopefully pointing in the correct direction. A user can determine the direction on the map using the north arrow as a reference. A neat line provides a border in the map and gives you an idea of the limits of the area of study within that map. Continuing with map basics, color. We often take it for granted that mountains are brown or rivers are blue. Just as there are many types of color maps, there are many different color schemes used by cartographers. A map user should look at the legend for an explanation of the colors on the map. Map scale refers to the relationship or ratio between distance on the map and corresponding true distance on the ground. For example, a 1:1 million scale map, 1 centimeter on the map equals 1 kilometer on the ground. Map projections can influence the viewer's perception of the information provided in a map. Since the world is round, attempting to show it in two-dimensional space can be problematic. Projections vary in type, as noted below, as we convert from that 3D spherical form into a 2D planar form. A conformal map, the shapes of places are accurate, but often other relationships on the map, such as distance, are not. Whereas a distance map, measured distances are accurate, but there may be some distortion in the shape of areas. Area equivalence maps, the areas represented on the map are proportional to their area on Earth. Directional maps, the angles of direction are portrayed accurately. The globe is a three-dimensional scale model of the Earth, and it does not distort either the shape or size of large features. Here's a planar presentation of the globe as a flat surface. We see the northern hemisphere to the top of the map, southern hemisphere to the bottom. The eastern hemisphere, which runs from the prime meridian in the center of the map to the east to 180 degrees in the Pacific Ocean. And we have the western hemisphere to the left, running from the prime meridian to 180 degrees west. Longitude on a globe is measured in angles east or west of the prime meridian. Latitude, also measured in angles from the equator, the line 0 latitude. We measure angles going north to the North Pole at 90 degrees and South Pole 90 degrees south. The latitude of every point must be between north or south 0 to 90 degrees. There are some special features on our globe that are important when we think about the relationship of the Earth to the Sun. In particular, the Antarctic Circle, the Arctic Circle, the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, and the equator are reference lines having to do with our spatial relationship to the sun at certain times during the year. The Tropic of Cancer is the most northerly circle of latitude on Earth at which the sun may appear directly overhead. This event occurs once per year at the time of the June solstice, when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun to its maximum extent. The Tropic of Capricorn is the southernmost circle of latitude on Earth at which the sun may appear directly overhead. This event occurs once per year at the time of the December solstice, when the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun to its maximum extent. The Arctic and Antarctic circles. The Arctic Circle is the southernmost latitude in the northern hemisphere at which the sun can remain continuously above or below the horizon for 24 hours, at the June solstice and the December solstice, respectively, June being 24 hours of sun, December being 24 hours of dark. The Antarctic Circle is the northernmost latitude of the southern hemisphere at which the sun can remain continuously above or below the horizon for 24 hours, with the opposite solstice effect. It's interesting to consider various places in the world and their relative latitudes or lines north of the equator, south of the equator, or relationship to the North and South poles. Let's take a look, for example, on this relationship map. We see in the upper right-hand side Morocco. The latitude of Morocco in northwest Africa is very similar to the latitude between about the middle of North Carolina down towards the middle of Florida. So our latitude here in Huntsville, Alabama, or Madison, Morgan County, is very similar to that of Morocco. Morocco, though, tends to be more desert-like, drier conditions due to its location on the continent of Africa, whereas the location of the southeastern United States and its relationship to the Gulf of Mexico produces much more rainfall than we would see in Morocco. We see that Portugal relates very directly to the latitude of Washington, D.C., and France is more like New England and southeastern Canada. So interesting comparisons when we take a look at the relative latitudes and some of the differences of places with similar latitude, but that's have to do with some landforms and earth processes that we'll study as we get to these different regions of study. One more interesting thing I'd like to present in our introduction is to consider the world as 100 people. If there were only 100 people in the world and we took the averages of various aspects of social relationship of people as of 2012, we would find that gender-wise there are 50 females and 50 males on average. 12 people speak Chinese of that 100. Spanish and English being the next most common languages with 5 each. 23 out of 100 people have no shelter. Nutrition-wise, we see that 15 are undernourished of that 100. 48% live on less than $2 per day in terms of poverty of that 100. That's a very high number, I would consider. Age-wise, the majority of the population, 66%, would be between 15 and 44 years of age, relatively young. Interesting to look at this and see 30% with internet access, only 7 of those 100 have a college degree. Well, that's it for our introductory presentation for this class. Next, you can move on to our Chapter 1 discussion, which we'll see posted shortly. Hope you enjoy our class, and be sure to use Blackboard to communicate any questions or information sharing you'd like to do with myself or the class. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again soon.